Welcome to my Goddess Wisdom channel. And this is a part two, a continuation of what was going on right before the cult. And what I'm realizing in this more self-reflective time is to pull back the perspective more and more, which is having me step back little by little, just to get a fuller scope, a wider view with the idea to do the television series in Jamaica, yes, because I already had the idea to do Jamaica Dance Off, so I started the press kit for that. But our main like 5-year goal or 5-year plan was to move to Accra. We knew that Africa, one of the countries, was going to be our home. We just didn't know which country. We didn't know where. We didn't know if it was, maybe it would be somewhere in North Africa. When we were in Spain, we wanted to go to Morocco because we found out that you can actually take a ferry from, I think the area is called Valencia or Sitges. Sitges, either Sitges or Valencia. We're looking at clean energy type stuff, like windmills, hydro type, you know, generation of electricity. Of course, solar. Um, so we were kind of trying to figure out how we were going to do this and where we were going to base ourselves because New York wasn't going to be the beat and end all. We used to see those New Yorkers in their apartments forever, evermore. We were that too, but we had traveled enough, and Stephen had traveled enough because Stephen was living on the same block basically that he grew up on. So he was very familiar with Chelsea and very familiar with that area. Um, so when we went to Dubai, it was because there was a microfinancing conference going on in Abu Dhabi that January. So we said, okay, let's just do a vacation out of it, and we go to Dubai and then go to Abu Dhabi from there. Yet once I was in Dubai and I invited my friend Tien, um, I invited a few people to come. So anyway, so Tien came. He came back from Dubai and everything, continued that same thing. But then a friend of mine, Sana is an artist. She's Swedish. Actually, Sana is a complex sort of story. Sana is uh Indian born because Sana, when she was 3, was adopted by a Swedish family. So she, or 2. Most of her memories and everything is Swedish. So she's totally disconnected from Indian culture. And in fact, she doesn't see herself as that. She sees herself as a Swedish woman. So, yeah, so Sana and I were supposed to actually meet in Ibiza. We're gonna meet in Spain for the summer, because friends of both of ours were renting a house in Ibiza for that summer. So we said, okay, let's go together. So I was kind of waiting. August came around and Sana was still in Turkey. She's a sculptor. She does like these large scale sculptures. Um, and she was in Istanbul trying to get commissioned by the Modern Museum, the Istanbul Modern Museum, to do sort of this large installation on one of their lawns. So she was there, and a part of that is networking and schmoozing and, going to other openings and being around, just being in the art environment scene in that environment and sort of being social. So she was there and she was still there month after month. And she was like, listen, I don't know what's going on with Ibiza, but why don't you just come here? I'm here and, I have friends here and, whatever, place to stay. So although I'd been to a Muslim country the year before, I didn't quite love it. I left Dubai earlier than I should have because I was just not loving it. Stephen and I went back to Europe and just, tribes through Holland together and Brussels. We just took the train. Once you're on the train, you were taking something from Holland, you're going to Brussels, you're going to France, you're going to Italy. So there's a lot of possibilities right there once you're in Europe because you're just traveling around basically. Um, so I was surprised that I was even considering it. So I went and got the guidebook and started to do my little research and all of that and started to see that, there's a more secular Muslim thing going on. It's not like everybody has on the burqa and like the women aren't all shrouded in black and the men aren't all in their regal and their whites and their this and that. I mean, Tibet was very interesting place, very interesting place. Uh, so yeah, so I was supposed to be in Turkey for 2 weeks. It ended up where Sana leaves Turkey to go back to Sweden, and I'm still in Turkey. I stay on for 3 months. I was in video production, so because I'd already produced the television series, the Jamaican dance-off competition, I had 13 episodes that I had been shopping around and all of that stuff in Jamaica. So I was kind of like frustrated with that, realizing that they were kind of trying to pull it away from me in a way and all of this stuff. And because I'm realizing at that point also that Stephen is still having his stories about why we're not ready to. Um, I mean, I know I had a ring on my finger, but there were no plans for starting a family and where that would be, whether we would stay in Manhattan or whether we'd get a place upstate or in Westchester or whatever, whatever plans. Um, until we meet the 5-year plan of Accra and whatever. So yeah, so Turkey was me sort of reconnecting or knowing myself to travel outside of Stephen. It was my first trip really away from like by myself, really. Because most of the trips I took was with Stephen. And yeah, and we took a lot of trips. We would take just long weekends to Miami, to South Beach. A lot of long weekends to Miami because we didn't necessarily always want to go to Jamaica, but um, I always felt that it's easier to manage New York when you travel away from New York, and then you get to love it when you come back. So, I mean, a lot of those long winters, we would spend long weekends in Miami biking and being in the water and yeah, and just being in that environment as well. When I came back from Turkey, I started looking for an apartment because Stephen and I were together, but I needed my own place. Once I started looking for an apartment, he didn't want me to move from the apartment, so he left the apartment and gave me his apartment, and he found an apartment. So we were doing it that way for a while until I realized that, this is your apartment, and at the end of the day, I'm still cooking, you're still here all the time. Everything is still almost the same except for certain things. And so I found my own apartment. I found a place in Tribeca. I wanted a place with a view. I wanted the view of the river, which I got. I would have done the river or Central Park. I got a place with the view of the river, so I could have my own balcony, which was off of my room, and all of that. So I was able to like have these meditative times, like big sky type, um, connection with self, which you don't really get as much when you're in Manhattan, when you're in New York, downtown Manhattan like that. So I went to Mexico. Mexico was like basically my second trip away from Stephen. And Mexico is where a lot of it's like I tapped into something in Mexico. So I tapped into something in Mexico. Okay, it was Tulum. And Tulum, I found this amazing place which it was just like super holistic, a yoga spa with all these different, like yoga was a part of it. All these different kinds of yoga was a part of the just being on at the resort. Had the Tamascal experience. No, a Tamascal, so it's this hut, it's like a clay hut, and you kind of bend in and go in. think maybe about 15 of us were there. So I said, okay, let me try this Temazcal, what this is. I didn't realize what was going to happen. It was all of this. It was like we go in, the shaman has these lava rocks and he would throw water on it and the whole place would steam up with the different herbs that he was putting in the lava rocks, I guess. And you were saying all these affirmations and then you were dealing with complete jet dark and it was I don't know why, but somehow you were it was strange because and I remember like 15, 20 minutes into this because this lasted for like maybe 4 or 5 hours. It was like a full day. Like when we came out, it was like we were in a different dimension. When we came out, it was like a different world. They like sprayed the water on everybody, like woke us back up or something, and it was like already getting dark out. We started like early. Um, so yeah, and so the Temascal, and it was just I remember like 15 minutes into the experience where I'm like, the parents supposed to, it was like because this was a real thing happening, and I'm like, this is not comfortable and chilling and meditative in a way. It was like a lot of overcoming stuff. And I remember I was about to leave and I was just like, like I have to represent. Like I'm the only like, woman of color here. I have to I have to represent. There's like 15 people in there. But when the shaman closed the flap thing, it was just jet black and it was this deep murky black. And then it was like it was just interdimensional. It was just very strange. And I came out of there, had tapped into something, not realizing it. And when I reached back to New York, it was like I could see a lot. I was seeing systems into systems. I was seeing the stuff going. I started asking questions of my own family when it came to things that happened and decisions that were made and um seemed that I was a part of some system. So I'm like a city kid because I'm going downtown. I'm in school downtown Brooklyn. So if you take the subway to Manhattan, from Manhattan you take something to Queens because I'm on the last stop on the F train and then a bus. So I'm like, oh, I'm almost in Long Island. Um, so so yeah, Manhattan, though the Lower East Side and the East Village and Washington Square Park and Tompkins Square Park and Union Square and like the mega store and like you know um Central Park, like we'd all go up there sometimes. The multi-culti clique sometimes would be all like, I don't know, well, 11, 12 of us, all different races, all because we were like a magnet school. So we people from all different places were there, from all different walks of life or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. It's not like a normal school where it's like that neighborhood of people who all went to school together, who all knew each other, kind of thing. Brooklyn Tech was like downtown, right across from Fort Greene Park. Um, anyways, so being sort of this city person and being in like a Manhattanite, um, I was using chopsticks since I was like 16, like eating Korean food and like, and just doing stuff different, just doing just Manhattan, that part of Manhattan, Nuyorican Soul Cafe, like brunch in the East Village or in Tribeca, Petita BL, like yeah. So Mexico had me come back to New York and sort of tapped in to stuff and start asking questions. And I'm asking questions of my family, asking questions of different people. They're not really giving me the right answer. That's when I decided, okay, I'm gonna go back to school instead of because I got my certification for graphic design right after high school and stuff. So I went into the workforce almost immediately. And actually, I just got my certification because I was already apprenticing or whatever you want to call it at a film center for a photographer slash graphic artist and I basically they sent me to school so that I can get the paper because I was already the certificate because I was already doing the work. I was already learned the programs, already using Photoshop. I was in the darkroom all the time. I we were doing both the normal photography, which was basically done with, but certain people, New York art world, still wanted sort of that kind of photography done, and also do like the computer graphic stuff and like the Quark, like laying out magazine, and a lot of stuff. So I decided that I'm going to retake, I had to retake the SATs. I scored really well, although I hadn't been in high school in so long. I think I went to Kaplan for 6 months or 3 months. I went to Kaplan for a couple months, deal with the math part and the more Excel math stuff. But that's it, and retook the SATs, wrote something autobiographical or something, going into Margaret Mead and all the stuff that I was interested, my travels and why I was interested in anthropology and all of that, and got accepted to my first choice, which was Columbia. We had to defer my enrollment and started to go to Medgar Evers, and still being sort of radical and all of that. And that's when I started getting into these conscious materials, reading certain books, then getting introduced into this group kind of meeting sometimes to reason about some of the concepts we were watching, some of the stuff that was out there on about the Illuminati and all of the constructs that they've created and the rituals being played out. Like we were just discussing a lot of stuff. And that's when this stuff came up as well, and different people in the group um, bringing in these things about this group and this what turned out to be the cult. Music is used to program and reinforce before you even begin. And while you go on and on and on with it, it's used to reinforce your continuation or the continued journey and all of that. And just ran straight into what at some level, like if I'm running from some human trafficking thing, I just start running into this situation and and it's like there's so many choices I could have made at that time, but it was like just waiting there as this because I'm like on the debate team in high school. I'm like, a public speaker. I love to write. I'm always reading. Like I would be in classes reading other books while I'm in the class. I dove in so deeply. It was like I just kept going on because I was so confident. And as you start to do certain things, you start to see your talents. Like I didn't realize that I could write song. I was writing all this other stuff. I was writing poetry. I was writing doing all this other writing, but I could write songs. And because I'm into anthropology and I'm looking at my people, I'm like being inspired to write certain things, but a lot of it was kind of rock and rollish or kind of, like drum and bassish or even hip hop-ish. Um, so being in that environment, I had to figure out how to work more with dance hall rhythms as well. So that's when I started to study how I wanted to use my voice and how I wanted the to be whatever. And so which really meant how I was going to um, perform that song. Like how am I going to sing that song? Now it's written. How am I going to is it going to be a more subdued sound or is it more like projecting, like that kind of thing. Now that this is my style, I have to know use the environment that I'm in and the people that I want to reach and use the instrumentals that are going to activate something in them, activate their curiosity. Because everybody's on the internet, but not everybody watching the same stuff. Everybody's on the internet, but not everybody is tuned in to even, put time and energy or effort into learning certain concepts that if they just start on that one concept, the algorithms will take them on a journey. You know what I mean? If so inclined. But if almost it was like I'm in Jamaica and I start putting in some of my stuff like searches in YouTube when all this other information is coming up. And this girl, she was like, yeah, wow, you have a different YouTube than me. Wow, you have a different you. And I'm like, no, I don't have a different YouTube. I search for different stuff. So all the stuff that pops up in on my stuff is all affiliated to the different stuff that I search. And the stuff that you search the most are gonna have more of that kind of stuff. So that's the reason why you only so it's like she's just in this cocoon of only that stuff, which kind of happened with me as well. So a lot of the songs ended up memorizing and using to inculcate and make an imprint on my own brain were sort of journey songs as well. So yeah, you're running from something, so you run straight into something without the fuller scope of why you're even doing it, why you're even so um convinced. You see, New York is just like all these different layers of humanity. Stephen used to call it like, whether you're with a captain of the universe or, with somebody who's living the mundane, and so we always kind of wanted to be those sort of people doing stuff actively. And I think that's why microfinancing and even that Abu Dhabi conference and all of that was when we're making plans for our future, our 5-year plan. It had to do with including the community in our endeavors, and how do we build a community, as well as now we're there, we're gonna do something that's making money, but we're also going to do something that's building.